Welcome to the Moonshots Podcast. It's episode 148. I'm your co-host, Mike Parsons, and as always, I'm joined by the Iron Man, Mark Pearson Freeland. Good morning, Mark.
Hey, good morning, Mike. I don't know whether I could take the title of Iron Man considering who the topic of today's show on resilience really is. I mean, he's the real man made of iron, steel, and every other precious metal in the world.
I think you could be right. I think he's a bit mad. I think he's done some amazing things. I would even go far as to say he might be the David Goggins of the United Kingdom.
I think you might be right. So today, Mike, you and I and our listeners are digging into the book, the tome, the guidelines, I suppose you could say, and the art of resilience by none other than Mr. Ross Edgley, who is not only, Mike, a pretty well-known best-selling author, but he's won awards for his adventuring as well. And he's really focused his work, his experience, his physical explorations into adventure around the idea of resilience, which is perfect for the series that you and I are digging into at the moment.
Yeah, it is a great body of work because he really sort of makes charts the course on how his mind was able to unlock this incredible feat. Amongst many things that he has done, what he has successfully done, and this is going to sound so crazy. Are you ready? He swam around the entirety of the United Kingdom. This is 1,780 miles for 157 days. And of course, he's climbed up Mount Everest and done all these other things. But Mark, as a Brit, does it not strike you as lunacy and madness and almost the impossibility of it to swim around the United Kingdom? How freezing that must have been, how challenging that must have been. It is a very hostile coast, isn't it?
Yeah, hostile is the only way I could probably describe it. I mean, you obviously don't have the luxury of having those warm waters. They're well known for shipwrecks, particularly up in the north coast around Scotland. You've got very treacherous waters. And I cannot even comprehend or imagine what it would have had to be like to put on your wetsuit, jump overboard of the boat that you're on, and just swim day after day, hour after hour, month after month.
Oh, listen, I'm so proud of a few laps of a beautiful pool, and the sunshine of Sydney, Australia. I think, oh, wow, what a feat. But he went so much further, and it was mind over matter. And what is ahead of us today, Mark, you and I and all of our listeners, we're going to break it down, and we're going to understand the role that resilience plays in achieving so much. We're going to work out how he actually, successfully swam around Great Britain, and we're going to learn his process, his method. We're going to put it all together so we can not only let our jaws drop, but what we will do is we'll pick ourselves up and learn how we can do it too. And I think, this idea that we can study a book, which is, as the byline on the book says, strategies for an unbreakable mind and body. And I think that's a pretty exciting topic. It's totally on brand for us here at Moonshots. I'm very excited, and I'm really glad too that we've got someone to complement sort of Eric from last week, who had, all of that military experience. We had Angela, who was an academic and found out that resilience and grit is really the defining factor of success. Today, we've got someone who, from his own volition, chose to swim around Great Britain. We're going to work out how he did it. Mark, I'm excited. Where do you want to start?
I want to start with none other than Mr. Ross Edgley actually introducing us to how he pushes his limits and the idea that resilience redefines you.
I believe that comfort comes at a cost. To know what you're truly capable of, you've got to push beyond your limits. And keep pushing, demanding more and more of yourself. Physically, you adapt fast. But the mindset, that takes time. You don't just switch off. You can't. You're not a machine. You wake up sore. Your body says stop, and you doubt yourself. I know I did. That's just human. But being resilient is about pushing through that doubt. Convincing yourself you can. That's the hardest part. But it's those moments, the ones you think will break you, that make you.
Well, I mean, does that not just set the tone for a very different look into resilience, Mark?
Yeah, like you say, Angela came at us with quite an academic breakdown of resilience, which was perfect. That was kind of like the building blocks, Mike. It was building that foundation of, okay, well, what's the idea of grit? How can we, get our footholds and purchase a little bit on the idea of resilience? And digging into Eric, it was all about how he was helping his friend based on some lessons that they learned within the Navy SEALs. Ross is coming at us today with, well, I almost want to say, Mike, dare I say it, an everyman approach. You know, he was a guy, he didn't come through the Navy SEALs, unless it was secretive, I'm not sure.
Stealth Ross Edgley. No, but you're right. He just brings it in the most relatable, simple terms because he wasn't in the military, so he doesn't have that sort of language. He wasn't like a professor at a big university. This is just another take on what is really starting to appear to be the clear differentiator between success and failure. It seems to me those that don't give up, those that are, when they fear those triggers of fight or flight, they can use their mind to say, no, I'm going to push through it. And, you know, many things stick to me about the relationship between, you know, athletic achievements and achievements in life. And one of the themes that always seems to come up is that when we have these moments where we doubt ourselves, we want to run, or we want to kind of fight, or, you know, our body is saying to stop, to give up, it hurts too much, that often that is a tipping point moment, which if we can break through, that we discover we have so much more potential inside of us. And this is a big theme that we've had on the show, isn't it? That it's the ability to understand you're pushing your limits and it's okay. Wouldn't you say, Matt?
Yeah, the admission that life can and will be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, Ross calls out in that intro clip right there, which is, you know, kicked us off, Mike, and I'm really excited to get into Ross's idea and art of resilience and building that unbreakable spirit and mind. You know, this idea of comfort is perhaps a little bit too orientated into our lives now.
Oh, yeah.
And the truth is that when you do expose yourself to difficult things, let's use a marathon, let's break it down, 10K. You're going to go on some practice runs and your body will probably adapt quite quickly. You know, you might be able to get that little bit fitter. You'll be able to, you know, get moving a little bit quicker. But as Ross calls out, mindset takes more time because you're almost conditioned into, let's call it the easy path, right? And everything like a 10K run or anything more significant, it's going to take that little bit more time and you're going to have to push through those comfortable limits. And that's such a consistent thing that you and I keep on running into with the idea of success. In order to be successful, you have to break through those, you know, let's call them comfortable limits, because when you do, that's what sets you apart and enables you to go out and create something that's maybe a little bit more unique, or maybe go and do something that is a little bit more unexpected.
And the context in which Ross Edgley is inviting us to be resilient is a world where a lot of things provide us comfort and come so instantly. And if you're an old guy like me, you remember when there wasn't the internet, and you know, you can't, you know, back in the day, if I wanted to, when I was a kid, if you wanted to know the answer to a tricky question, you'd have to go to the library and try and find a reference book and that kind of thing. Well, today we can just Google. If you want food, you just hit Uber Eats and it's here in half an hour. Like there's a lot of things come to us instantly now. So this is what for me is so good to come back to hard work day after day. In fact, Ross Edgley did it for 157 days as he swam around the United Kingdom, like totally mad. And so he's got a lot of wisdom for us, Mark. He's got a bit of a playbook that will help us do it as well. Where should we start with Ross Edgley's book, The Art of Resilience?
Well, I think, as you've just mentioned, it's all about hard work. And this concept of resilience that we keep on coming back to, we keep on seeing interact with all of these moonshotters that we cover, it's all connected with success, isn't it? And hard work is what underpins all of these individuals and all of the success, inverted commas, that they go out and do. So what better way to really dig into the guidelines and the books and the strategic direction that Ross can teach you and I and our listeners than actually hearing from Ross break down this concept of hard work and why it is, in fact, the answer to resilience.
I want to quote you. And this is a quote that you said recently. It was on one of your Instagram pieces. And it's this: "It's my hope that people remember the Great British Swim as an example or an experiment in both mental and physical fortitude. This lost art of grit and determination that we used to have in the golden era of exploration. Hard work is so often the answer. The question is so often irrelevant."
Right, yeah.
What does that mean, that last sentence?
I got swimming, and when we spoke all that time in February, I didn't realize how much that swimming solitary confinement would affect me. But you are left alone with your own thoughts. Over 157 days, swimming for 12 hours a day, we worked out I spent probably over 20 to 30 days on my own, staring at the bottom of a seabed with earplugs in, so I can't hear anything, I can't smell anything. So you are just purely left alone with your own thoughts. And when we spoke again in February, it was purely a theory at the time. And we spoke about, central governor theory. And I was saying to you, Brian, I believe that fatigue's an emotionally driven state that you use and your brain basically gets you to pull that physiological handbrake, to make sure that you maintain homeostasis. You don't do any damage to yourself, self-preservation mechanisms. And I said, I theorize that you can override this. And you were doing Iron Mind at the time, and I was saying there's going to be that moment during your Ironman, and it's relative. It doesn't matter. You doing your Ironman, me swimming around Great Britain. It doesn't matter. Somebody going to run their first 10-kilometer race, they've never run before. They're going to get to that point where their body says, this is fatigue, pull the physiological handbrake, don't do damage to yourself. So that part at the end where I said, hard work is so often the answer and the question is so often irrelevant. What I meant by that was during the Great British Swim and going back to the central governor theory, swimming became a really small part of it. It was just, are you going to get in, scrape ice off your wetsuit, which I had to Aberdeen. I remember it was the first day of autumn. I left my wetsuit out to dry. It was 2:00 in the morning. The tide had changed. And I was like, and it's just a thin layer of ice. I scraped it off and I'm just putting it on like that. And no one was asking me to. I didn't have to get in the water. But if I didn't, that's a 6-hour tide that's gone. That could be 15 miles. And if you miss 15 miles and you add up just a few of those, all of a sudden, the window to actually swim around Great Britain, which is the British summer, which is very, very short. You're thinking kind of May to, and we've been lucky that I finished just yesterday. So, November the 4th, I was lucky that we had a really good summer. Right. Because it would have become impossible. We had Storm Callum and Storm Ali. They came in. And if you're trying to swim around the top of Scotland in a storm, boats don't go around the top of Scotland. Never mind a swimmer.
Really?
So when
the weather.
Yeah. You're not going around Cape Wrath at the top there. So northwest Scotland, you're not going around the top of there if you're getting Arctic winds from Iceland, 50 knots smashing into the side of the west of Scotland. You're not going past there in a boat. You'll be just, people have lost their lives out there. And so when I say hard work is so often the answer, the question is irrelevant. What I mean by that is on the Great British Swim, the limiting factor, the defining factor wasn't how high my elbows were on a swim, how streamlined I was, what was my head position. None of that mattered. But are you going to put your face in the water and are you going to get in for 6 hours and make 12 miles? Because if you do, you might make it around the top of Scotland before the British winter comes in, and that's it.
Hard work is the answer. I just, I think where this brings me to is that sometimes when we face great challenge and hardship and we feel like nothing is going our way, that it's so easy to think that either stopping or doing something else, or maybe blaming the conditions around you, is the reason that we walk away from things. And I think it's such a powerful mantra that, hard work is the answer. And the question, and I love the fact, Mark, that he says, well, the question or the challenge you're facing really doesn't matter. Hard work is just the answer, period. I mean, that's pretty emphatic as a mantra. And I think of myself when I'm facing challenge, and I love this idea of just hard work is the answer. Sticking to it is the answer. Grinding it out is the answer. And it's like we forget this. It's like our mind plays our tricks on us and says, wow, this is a crazy situation. You don't have to deal with it. It's like all the self-preservation stuff kicks in, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's a familiar topic that I think we've run into a few times, which is you can be your own worst enemy.
I know.
That lack of confidence or let's call it courage can kick in and make you question, well, do I want to get in the water? I love that little reference that Ross has. I didn't have to get in, but if I didn't do it and I didn't put in the hard work, I'd have to do it later. Or there will be a knock-on effect of some kind, regardless of the challenge, regardless of the question. All I had to do was put my face in the water. Is that what I'm going to do today? And this idea of hard work being the answer, no matter what that challenge is, speaks volumes to me, because although I'm not trying to swim around, whether it's the northwest coast of Great Britain or any part of Great Britain, there are going to be challenges that I run into on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis that to me is a similar situation. It's going to feel like I'm having to get out of bed and swim around Great Britain, and it's going to challenge my, comfort zones.
Don't you think it could be a great mantra to kind of almost build into yourself that whenever you're facing a moment of doubt, when all those little voices say, stop, do something else, or blame others, or whatever our temptation might be, don't you think it's like, I think it's pretty empowering if you can remind yourself and always come back to hard work is the answer. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Stay the course. If you know and I can hold on to the fact that it's something that you should be doing, even though it's damn hard, something that you should be doing, then never allow yourself to entertain quitting, changing, blaming, judging. Hold on to it. Hard work is the answer. And you know what? It doesn't matter what you're doing. Hard work. Pretty good, right?
Yeah, I think it's really, it really is a valuable mantra. I mean, he also references the idea that fatigue is an emotionally driven state. And I think the connection for me with that is fatigue comes in many, many forms, doesn't it? You wake up the morning after a stressful run, let's say, and you can feel like, my muscles are a bit sore. I think equally, if the challenge is more of a mental one, so maybe it's a tough conversation, or maybe it's a tricky project, or maybe it's something else. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just continual struggles. Then you're going to get emotionally fatigued. And you're going to wake up, or you're going to look at the problem and think, you know what, I don't have it in me. But again, referencing and connecting it to, but hard work. Just keep on putting in that hard work. It doesn't matter. Just keep on putting it in, having a go, pushing yourself that little bit further beyond that mental fatigue. I think then that's how you can continue, let's say you're dealing with that suffering, that challenge, whatever it might be, every single day by just, like Ross is calling out, putting your face in the water, putting in that hard work and just swimming against it.
Yeah, I think it's very powerful. And I'll tell you what, Mark, I'll tell you who else is working really hard, and that's all of our members. They have been so great in coming in to support us. I'm so grateful that we only recently started inviting people to become members of the Moonshot podcast. And Mark, it's so great to see that people have answered the call, isn't it? Now, I think they deserve a bit of a roll call. So who do we have to give a shout out to?
Yep, I'm giving a roll call to all of our members of the Moonshot Show. We've got Bob, we've got Niles, we've got John, we've got Terry, we've got Brady, we got Niall, we got Sandy, Marjolin, Ken, Dietmar, Tom, and Byron. A call out and a roll call to all of you guys. You are our favorites, and you are, most importantly, joining us as we explore all of the different topics that we're diving into in the member series.
Yeah, so when you become a member of the Moonshots podcast, I think it's really important you're supporting us because we have lots of bills to pay to put this show together. So we thank you. We have several different hosting providers. So I think right now our current members pay for one of those. The rest we pay for ourselves. So we're really grateful for you, our members, for supporting us. And we invite those of you who really do love the show. We create this value for you. We religiously put out this show every single week. And we ask that if you feel that you're getting something from us, we would ask you to become a member, support us, help us pay some of the bills. We'd love to build a Moonshots app, but of course we need to invest in that. So we'd really invite you to become a member because not only will you give us $1 a week, to help us invest in the show, is you also get a VIP exclusive show called the Moonshots Master Series, where we go really, really deep on some of the topics that we cover in the Moonshots podcast. So you get a whole second podcast from the Moonshots guys. What a deal. So Mark, if you are fired up, if you want to support the show, if you want to become a member, where do you go to do this?
That's right. If you want to hear our comprehensive deep dive into motivation, into first principles, as well as into collaboration and teamwork, listeners, pop along to www.moonshots.io, click on the banner at the top of the screen and become a member. As Mike was just breaking down, we've got lots of exciting things in our roadmap, but it's only going to be possible if you come and join us, give us your support, and be part of our Moonshots family.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Now let's turn our eyes back to and our ears back to Mr. Ross Edgley. Now we're going to start hearing some of the details of his madcapped adventure, his 157-day adventure, swimming around Great Britain.
Hard work is so often the answer, and the question is so often irrelevant. If you focus on the process, the outcome is inevitable.
You have just spent the last 157 days to become the first swimmer to circumnavigate the whole of Great Britain.
This wasn't a physical experiment, it was mental. You're alone with your own thoughts. Your true self will be revealed to you whether you like it or not. I remember thinking, why are you doing this? The wounds are open wounds, just chafing the salt, or your tongue's falling apart. You've not been warm for 157 days. You're scraping ice off your wetsuit. I want to be warm and just have Sunday dinner with my family. As humans, we don't need a lot to be happy.
This was kind of born out of a failure, right?
I had failed to swim from St. Lucia to Martinique. I didn't do what I said I was going to do. It lit a fire under my belly. I kind of wanted that fairy tale ending, and then you got it. For those people to come out at the end, I felt reverberated across the sea, the energy.
I think you were feeling this overwhelming connectivity, spirit of life.
You're feeling something so powerful that it actually has an effect on your biology. It's just a little bit strange that I had to swim around Great Britain to almost discover that. But when you are in complete exhaustion, you find the most honest version of yourself.
Alrighty, we've got a few different things in there, Mike, but they're all laddering up into a process that we can dig into and learn about resilience, don't we?
Yeah, I love that using that failed swim as his his sort of fuel for the fire. And I think if we're all honest, we've all not lived up to our expectations at some point in life, haven't we? And we can all use that.
Yeah, again, we've heard it from some of our other moonshotters as well. You know, whether it's the Elon Musk running into roadblocks or disapproving looks from his childhood heroes. You know,
Serena Williams.
Exactly.
She was big on like true champions are measured how they rise after a fall.
That's right. You can use this failure either of others or yourself in order to kind of fuel your approach into, let's call it resilience, driving towards or swimming towards success in Ross's case. But I think what's interesting and most relatable to me, Mike, is Ross's intro in that clip where he says it wasn't actually a physical challenge swimming around Great Britain, that he had to, obviously he had to eat, I think it was 12,500 calories a day. And
Gosh.
if you have a look at how big this guy is, you know, he's built like a tree, you know, or a car, maybe, you know, he's pretty broad.
Yes.
But the fact is it wasn't necessarily a physical one for him. It was purely or majoritively mental. And as we heard in the previous clip, looking at the bottom of the seabed for 20 to 30 days within the 157 days it took him to swim around, continually no stimulus from other people. He can't hear anything. He can't taste anything. He's just looking at one solid sandy or silty bed. I think that speaks volumes to me because it helps me realize when I've got a challenge and I can't really see through the challenge, the problem, whatever it might be, just to keep on reminding myself, okay, it's a physical challenge. If I strengthen my mind that little bit, I can cut through it and I can get that clarity in order to succeed and get to the end destination a lot easier because it's all within me. I can control my reactions to it.
Yeah, and I think the role of mindset being the differentiator, I think we learned that when we studied Michael Jordan, didn't we? You actually knew that in the end, the thing that led to Jordan's success was his mindset, his complete will to win and to get to training first, be the last to leave, to put in the work. And the reason that all of his teammates rose around him was because he never asked them to do anything he wasn't prepared to do himself. So again, the lesson of hard work comes back. I mean, this is very powerful stuff. And it makes me very curious, Mark, on how do you see this working for those of us who aren't swimming around Great Britain? Like, how do we kind of put some of these things into practice? Like if I said to you, okay, so how are you going to apply some of this thinking from Ross Edgley's book, The Art of Resilience? Where might you start?
I think it's all about, for me, it's in that last clip where I'm just imagining myself and drawing a comparison between that feeling that you get, or at least I get, Mike, when I know I've got a lot of spinning plates. There's a kind of weight on your shoulders and you can't really see where to begin. Okay, I've got this thing over here. I've got that thing over there. This is a bit of a challenge and everything's a little bit blurry. I'm now transporting my mind into Ross's experience of swimming. So my face is in the water and it's all a bit silty. I can't really see anything. Maybe it's a bit cold. The destination is, I've only swum maybe 50% around Great Britain. I've still got all of that distance to go. And I think, okay, well, that's okay. All it is one swim. Okay, now try it again, and just break it down into small, let's call them bite-sized pieces. And when I try and break it down and I think about this concept of just do hard work, that's the answer. I think it's completely relatable to me as somebody who wants to try and do the best project or the best work possible. And you can do that with just spending your own time, really thinking about that problem, writing it down, preparing. Maybe it's practicing, maybe it's learning new skills in order to deliver it the best with your team. And I think it's, like you say, with Jordan, it was the preparation, it was the practice. He was putting in the hours. And I think that translates directly into this concept of hard work as well, which is if you're going to go out and do the best work you can, you just have to create that process and framework around the work that you're doing in order to enable you to go and do the best version or the best level of hard work that you can do.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's like resilience becomes like a habit, or like James Clear was saying, habits are our lifestyle, and they're not just for a fixed amount of time. It's like that they become a way of operating.
I think this is what I was starting to see within Angela's work with grit. This idea of grit being not disposable is I guess, an interesting way of putting it. It's something you have to learn. And it's not something that we're taught at school. Resilience isn't something that you're going to sit down and say, okay, what's my next class? It's English, it's math, it's resilience. Instead, as we referred back to, I think in that show, or maybe it was last week, Mike, you and I were reflecting on the idea that it is something that you start learning more as you get older, because you're running into more of these challenges. You and I aren't necessarily taking on challenges like swimming Great Britain every couple of months. Instead, our version of swimming Great Britain will be, maybe it's a difficult project, maybe it's a difficult conversation. And by practicing and building that resilience early in advance, maybe it's through projects that have gone a little bit sideways in the past, or maybe it's just by reflecting and learning on people like Ryan Holiday, Eric, Angela, or Ross, we can start learning these techniques in order to be, like you say, create a habit of resilience and reflect on it, dig into it. Maybe it's daily, ideally it's daily, or maybe it's weekly. And through the act of looking into it, I think we can start building that foundation of resilience earlier, so that when we do inevitably run into a challenge, whatever it might be, whether it's jumping in the water and swimming Great Britain or otherwise, we're going to be that little bit more prepared.
Yes. And so I think, the point that we get to here is a very good reminder of some of the themes that Ross is touching on that came back in some of the other shows in our resilience series. I think what we saw from Angela, grit is a defining factor of success. So she had studied 16,000 people. She'd gone to West Point and studied the candidates at West Point. So for me, the interesting thing here is her thinking around that statistically resilience and grit were defining factors of success. And then what we saw was the capacity of Eric Grittens to help a friend who was overwhelmed in challenge to build resilience as a process, as a habit, as a way of operating. And what's quite interesting, the two sides of this challenge is what we'll hear from Ross Edgley is we have complete control of our thoughts, and resilience is free. However, resilience is hard because we have these trigger points that when we push ourselves, when we encounter our limits, we have a natural desire to want to stop, don't we, Mark? And so this is the real pointy end of making it a habit, is pushing through those barriers, don't you think?
Yeah, I really, really do. Many times, or maybe not many times, but several times in my career have I run into moments when I think, oh, this project is a little bit uncomfortable now. I really wish I wasn't here. And your natural inclination often is, well, in which case I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. And when you look back, fast forward 6 months, a year, whatever it might be, you think back and say, actually, you know what? That was really pivotal in my growth. I was able to really learn something from that, which I didn't see at the time. And that value of what's the right word, Mike? Not foresight. When you reflect back, when you the opposite of foresight, when you hindsight, when you have that hindsight and you look back at that challenge and you think, oh yeah, you know what, that really did define me. And now I am that little bit stronger. That's the work that I think we can get out of reflecting on resilience so much. And going back to the show on Eric, what I thought was a very, very valuable lesson from Eric, and I think I can see references within Ross's work as well, is this circle of control.
Yeah.
So the circle of control, right, I'm Ross. I can't control the weather around the northwest tip of the UK, but if I don't get in, I'm going to lose several hours. So what do? I'll put my face in the water and I'll give it a go.
Yes.
That resilience, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be a hard swim, but I'm going to expose myself because I can see the benefit in the long run. That seems to me, that speaks volumes again to me. This idea of the circle of control. I can control my emotions to the cold, to the discomfort. I'll go in and get over that.
Yeah. And what we saw is, stories of people in their early years in a previous show. Disney was told that he didn't have any imagination. Yes. Oprah was told she wasn't good for television. If they hadn't been resilient, they would never have gone on to achieve what they have. But likewise, even when you pursue something and you are resilient, but you don't get the result, what we can often find is, I didn't succeed at that. However, I met this person there, or this new opportunity came because I did it, and then I found my thing. Like, how often do you hear stories like that it was doing something to your very best effort, sticking to it, and even if you didn't achieve the heights that you dreamt of, often something maybe indirectly good comes of that endeavor, doesn't it?
Yeah, that it's very, very true. Once you've experienced that discomfort, maybe it's collaborating with the right people, or maybe it's just testing your character, your spirit, you're going to have that benefit in the long run. And that, for me, Mike, is really what we're trying to do on the Moonshots show, isn't it? We're trying to look at these individuals, these inspirational characters in the world, and determine what we can learn from them. And I think the thing that underpins the majority, if not all of them, is this character, this ability to immerse themselves, put their backs against the grindstone,
yes,
and just get it out.
Yes, and so I think it's the ritual of being able to instantly respond when you sense yourself doubting, questioning, judging, even contemplating giving up, that you say no. Hard work is the answer. Resilience is the answer. Grit and determination. Get on the other side. Like, why would you suffer and then give up in the middle of this so-called suffering and challenge? Move through that so that you can get to the other side. And I think we all know there is another side of it. Like, there's no permanent valley of darkness, is there, Mark?
Not in my experience, no, because you can always complete the project, or you can always get through the difficult conversation and come out the other side.
Yes.
Yes. And that then enables you to look back and say, hey, that wasn't so bad. Or maybe it was that bad, but it didn't last forever. And now here I am, I'm that little bit stronger.
Exactly. So let's catapult ourselves to the moment where we hear from Ross Edgley what he does when he hears the doubts coming into his mind. What does he do when he faces this valley of darkness, this great challenge? We get the privilege and the opportunity now to hear from Ross Edgley how he gets on the other side.
The main thing that I've learned is just to focus on the process. Too many people focus on the outcome. So if you're running a marathon, you're going, how many ever run? 26.2 miles. How many miles away? How many miles? But sometimes if you just get lost in the motion and you're just like, I'm just running and 4 foot, I'm using running as an example, but 4 foot striking. That feels all right. And the crowd, this is nice. I'm enjoying the process. And I've just had an energy. I'm full of, all of a sudden the outcome will be inevitable if you focus on the process. my little brother, he's an actor, and he told me, do you know what, Ross, with such sensory deprivation going on, you can't hear anything, you can only see the bottom of the pool, your mind is going to wander, and he said just embrace that. So wherever it goes, just run with it. And it sounds weird, but during some of my longer swims, you end up just like planning what you're going to have for Christmas dinner like a year in advance. You are almost daydreaming. It's like moving meditation. And if you get lost in that, it's one of the best things you can do, because you can plan things in your head and holidays and what you're going to have for dinner, and everyone's Christmas presents are sorted. And then when you look at your watch, you're like, oh wow, 10K's gone. So if you can tap into that, it's one of the most powerful things you can do.
I love that, Mike, because it's so casual. Ross's casual reflection from I'm swimming Great Britain, but at the same time I'm multitasking and I'm planning all my Christmas presents for my family.
Well, I think, the burden of a big goal or objective can really weigh you down. And like, if you've got to swim around Great Britain for 157 days and you're on day 2 and you're like, this is really hard, I've got another 155 days to go. That's not a very productive way to look at it. But isn't it interesting that you hear from so many great sports people? It is very common now in elite sports people to hear focus on the process, not the outcome. Build the muscle memory, build the flow, build the rhythm, lose yourself in the process, be at one with the process. What comes to my mind is how, when you look at great music artists like Michael Jackson, he would lose himself in the music. He would dance as if almost like his dancing is part of the music. He's not thinking about making another number one. He's in the process. And what's quite interesting, what we learn from our habit series, if we think about work and when we think about relationships, if you put the effort in, if you do the hard work to call your family, your friends, to spend time with them, if you put in the hard work to do the things to get ready for a meeting, to get ready for a presentation, if you do the work, don't worry on the outcome, because if you know that you've put in the work, good things can happen. And I think it's really powerful to hold on to that in the face of uncertainty, go back to the process.
This is quite a significant penny drop moment for me, Mike, because I'm regularly focused on the outcome. So I will judge the success of my process, my work, maybe that of my team, based on the output. And I quite like where you've just gone there. I like that story with Michael Jackson, as well as where Ross took us here as well in that clip, which is just enjoy yourself. It's something that I really get lost or I lose track of. I'll focus on, much like when you're doing a run. Okay, I've only done 2K. I've got another 8 to go. Oh no, it's going to take me forever. And what does it do? Well, it stresses you out. It puts too much pressure on the situation. And much like if you're beginning a big old project and you'll see, it's going to last for 6 months, a year. Okay, well, this is a bit of a challenge. I wish it was over. What's going to happen? Your ability to perform is going to be impacted, isn't it? Because you're not in the right headspace. And instead, and exactly like imagine yourself swimming around Great Britain. Oh, I've still got 150 days to go. If Ross was continually obsessing over counting down the strokes, counting down the days, I mean, he would have been probably even more miserable than he was.
Yeah.
But you're hearing from him here, and he sounds upbeat. And what he's done, and I want to come back to your reference to Michael Jackson, is removing the pressure of, I've got to have a number one song. Right. Remove that. What does he do? He enjoys the act of making music, which is his passion, and he enjoys the process. Likewise with Ross. Okay, well, I'm just going to go out, have a go swimming. I enjoy swimming. What can I think about? Okay, well, it's Christmas presents. He's not thinking about his efficiency in the water or anything like that. Right. He's removing that pressure. And that's a huge lesson, I think, Mike, when I'm reflecting on projects that I work on, if I remove that pressure, that output, and instead just think, okay, well, I can just work on the process right now. I can do my best work, and hard work is obviously the answer. Suddenly it feels that little bit lighter, doesn't it?
It does. It does. So let's do a little exercise and ask ourselves like what our process is. And like for me on any day, like the first three things that I focus on: good sleep, good healthy food, and good exercise. Like for me, that's my platform, getting focused on that, getting up and making sure that I tick those three things in order to have the best day I possibly can, to do the best work, to be the best father, the best husband I can be. Like for me, that's an essential part of my process. And then I get into stuff like writing down the important things for the day, making sure I've got a clear list of tasks that are balanced against my calendar. So, weighing up the work and the time, that's another big part of my process. Even before we get into the work itself, those are some of the process things that I do. I'm interested to know, Mark, like, what do you do? What are the kind of key elements of your process?
Two similar things. I will also try and get exercise. That's my way of, I read and I heard a pretty interesting interview the other day that broke down your kind of energy that's surging through your body. And particularly in that fight or flight moment, you've got a lot of energy that almost wants a reaction. You want to run, you want to flee. So channeling that into some form of exercise for me really helps ground my mind rather than let it, fly off. So exercise for me, a huge one. Lots of water as well. That for me really, really helps freshen, I guess, myself. It kind of gets rid of hydration.
Hydration is often the cause of fatigue, right?
Absolutely. Hydration for me is so huge. Always has been, and that really helps me keep a clear head, but also focus. It actually affects my focus quite a lot, as well as writing stuff down, whether it's over the weekend and I'll be sitting there maybe on a Sunday and I'll be thinking, okay, well, what do I need to do this week? I've got so much. The simple act of taking a few minutes and writing down a couple of things and thinking, okay, well, I know I've got to do this. Well, that's cool because now I've got it out of my head. It's no longer a ball that is bouncing around in my brain. The act of journaling, the act of writing something down is actually my way of preparing for the week and preparing myself for the upcoming day.
Yeah.
Not only as a means of reflecting on the previous day, okay, well, how was I yesterday? How can I improve on myself today? A la Jordan Peterson. Instead, it's, okay, well, just the act of getting everything out onto paper then allows my brain to have that little bit of space to then go into whatever that work might be. So rather than being distracted by almost like notifications, Mike, internal notifications. If you turn off your internal notifications by journaling or writing it down, that helps me keep a clear head.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that you see a list of things that we're describing there is focusing on process, which we have learnt a lot from the 148 shows that we've done, journaling, waking up early, sleeping well, eating well, exercising, planning ahead, being prepared, putting in the work, right? Thinking clearly, writing things down, asking tough questions. These are all part of the process. And very much, if you focus on that, you can be resilient because, the nice thing is if you had a good sleep, you worked out and you wrote your journal, wow, you can feel really good because you can tick off 3 things that are your process. So regardless of the challenge that you're facing, well, I've already had a good start to the day, slept well, exercised, did my thing, journaled, ready to go. I've got a good plan for the day. Okay. I might be swimming with sharks around Great Britain, but, I'm prepared and I'm focused on the process, right?
Yeah. It's exactly like William H. McRaven. Make your bed in the morning because then when you come back to it later, something's already been done. And it's the act of ticking something off, getting it out of your brain and moving along is so helpful at grounding yourself and starting that day off right. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yes. And it's almost like, just like any athlete would have a warm-up training and warm-down program, we should have the same for us, both in our personal and professional lives. But you know what, Mark? We've got one more thought from Ross Edgley, the author of Art of Resilience. And it's a big one, Mark. So why don't you and our listeners get ready for the last thought from Mr. Ross Edgley.
For a lot of people probably watching, when they say, I want to do something similar, how do I do it? And I'm like, well, you look at the Great British Swim and you've got to know that's the sum and substance of over 10 years of doing this. You know, and I did it initially, as you know, to raise money for charity, Teenage Cancer Trust, because of my friend. So I did it purely, one, to give myself something to train for. When I stopped playing international sport, I wanted something to do. And then two, it was really just to do something that was bigger than the event itself and bigger than me. And if that was raising money, getting people involved, that was always the thing. But for anyone watching, so how do I kind of get involved? You got to understand, I always started off, and even with this, I start off with like, how can I do this with the least resources? So when I did the World's Strongest Marathon, that was when we first caught up, I was like, I can run a marathon, because you can do that anywhere, you know, as long as I've got something flat, and I've got a car, you know, it's an old car, and I've got a harness that my friend, strongman, you know, Jeff Capes lent me one as well, like 2-time world strongest. He was like, there's an old one you can have, and I was like, cool. So I was like, I've got a harness, and then I was like, my girlfriend, she'll probably sit in the car like while I pull it for a marathon, like she's used to. And I was like, so what do you need to run a marathon pulling a car? Nothing. It's free. Start something, and it can be so small. And another nice thing, even this, honestly, I love this story. But after the triathlon, you know, I did that, as you know, in Nevis to raise awareness for their eco projects. Wants to become the world's first carbon neutral island by 2020. So I did their triathlon, carrying a tree, and called it a triathlon. And that was the thing. So somebody saw that, and there was a guy out in, I think he was from New Zealand, and he ended up doing it with 100 pounds of dog food to raise money for the dog shelter back home. And I was just like, I love that. You've just taken it and just made it your own and done it. And the triathlon was already set up in his hometown, so all the health and safety was there. And he just went up to the organizer and he just said, hey, I'm going to do it, but carrying dog food. And the organizer was like, okay. And so then it didn't cost him any more than it would have done to enter a normal triathlon. And you get, I think the point, I suppose I was, you know, in a roundabout way, is you still get those moments, you know, and it doesn't need to be as grand as the Great British Swim. You can do it.
It doesn't need to be as grand as the Great British Swim. I think, Mike, is the key reference and reflection that I have upon these different lessons and these tips from Ross today. We don't all need to jump in the water and swim nearly 2,000 miles, do we? Because we can actually utilize these lessons around, you know, patience, courage, mindset that Ross experienced in that pretty record-breaking occurrence, and applied to our own lives, because fundamentally, you know, sometimes it feels like we're swimming around Great Britain ourselves, right?
It can. And what I think is he's also inviting us to start small, but most importantly, just start, isn't he?
Just start. Exactly. Just have a go out, begin today, and you'll then be able to, whether you've already started practicing and have a habit of resilience or not, if you start today, you'll then be growing that muscle, that resilience from today onwards. So it's really an invitation to not only go out and give yourself an ambition, an objective, a goal. Instead, it's a challenge to all of us today to go out and do something that maybe feels a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah,
because
and
that will benefit us.
Yeah, because it reminds me a lot of the Tim Ferriss show that we did. And he talks so much about people setting crazy big goals. And then, you know, very early on in the process, they focus so much on the outcome and realize how far they have to go. And what Ross Edgley is doing is like, well, focus on the process, not the outcome. And two, start free, and it can be small. Like, I think that's the thing, because, you know, if you say, listen, I'm going to write a white paper, then just write a paragraph a day. And then pretty soon you'll be like, I'm going to write 2 paragraphs a day, right? I think, the powerful thing here is focus on the process, not the outcome. That's a big one, but also get started. Don't defer. Don't get stuck in your mind like if, maybe, but, what, if. No, he's just saying start, isn't he?
Don't defer. That's a great lesson or tip from Ross, because I think we could all, say, I'll begin it tomorrow. And realistically, Mike, that's just an excuse. Oh, I'm not ready yet. I'll give it another go maybe next year.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Instead, hey, it doesn't matter. You don't need to have a record-breaking 10K run, or you don't need to have a success right off the bat. Instead, just go out, give it a go, see how you react to things, see what things you can improve upon, and just learn about your reaction to these things, because like Eric called out, and even Angela, you're going to run into hardships in life. So laying this foundation now, go out, don't defer, is a way to prepare yourself and create that daily habit sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And I tell you what's another great daily habit, Mark, is becoming a member of the Moonshots podcast, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it really, really is. Not only with my journaling, it's something else that becomes a daily occurrence. It's going out and checking our Moonshots members. So members and listeners, please pop along to www.moonshots.io, where you can subscribe. You can become members to the Master Series. And Mike, we have comprehensive deep dives with a number of moonshotters that not only have we dug into before, but also brand new individuals we haven't previously covered on the show, with motivation, with first principles, with collaboration. And boy, we've even got a handful of things coming later this year, Mike, around habits, circles of influence, communication. We've got a huge plethora of content that's in that area, but you can only get access to it if you are a Moonshots member.
Absolutely the case. And you get a lunar powered dose of good vibes from us to you. So, I mean, I don't know who could say no to such an invitation, but I want to ask you, Mark. We have got to the end of the Ross Edgley show, and I want to ask you, what's the big one that you're taking away from this show?
It's going to be the putting one foot in front of the other. Just have another go, breaking it down rather than focusing on that outcome. So step away from the immediate focus on, is it going to be a success or not? And instead think, okay, well, how can I best utilize the idea of hard work? It's doing one thing at a time, one step in front of the other. I can plan and I can look back and I can see the overview of the big picture. But by breaking it down, I can put my best effort into each single, inverted commas, bite-sized piece, one thing at a time, in order to help myself get to a really, really good process that then in the long run, maybe it ladders up to a good, successful output. But right now, don't get too obsessed with the output. Instead, focus on that process. How about you? Where are you best leaning towards following this show on Ross?
Hard work is the answer.
Yeah.
When in doubt, don't think about the question, the challenge. Focus on the input of hard work. Be resilient, stick with it. Know that that's the thing that is the differentiator. This was a very powerful reminder for me. And I mean, I liked your ones as well, but that one really, really got me. Pretty good stuff, right?
Yeah, huge. Very, very valuable addition within our series on resilience. I thought hearing from somebody who has so much to reflect upon a pretty record-breaking, pretty grueling physical experience.
Totally. Well, Mark, I want to say thank you to you, and I want to say thank you to you, our listeners. It's been great to have you join us to learn out loud with none other than Ross Edgley and his book, The Art of Resilience. And what a story it was. He really got to the essence of it and said that it is resilience that redefines who you are. And it starts with hard work. Don't obsess about the outcome. Don't worry about the challenge. Focus on the hard work. And the reason he has so much to teach is he did that swimming around the entirety of Great Britain for 157 days. And the way he did it was focusing on the process, not the outcome. He put one foot in front of the other, or one arm swimming in front of the other. Whatever it takes, focus on the process, not the outcome. And this is an option that you have right now. You can start today. Resilience is free. It may be hard, but it is free, and it is the thing that will transform your life. It will help you become the very best version of yourself. And that's what we're all about here at the Moonshots Podcast. That's a wrap.